few minutes since this is not my normal streaming time, and I figured we'll give these guys a few minutes to get in before I start talking. Maybe I'll bring up something interesting to show. Early bird catches the filament. That's right. Got home a little early. I figured I'll just do early stream so that the get it out of the way. There's a lot to cover, and then I have the rest of the evening to sort of concentrate on the rest of my stuff, right? So that's what I figured. Just get it out of the way. Um, Give it a few minutes. Let the other guys kind of wander in. Okay, let's try that. See. Hmm. Oh, I know why. This should be way better now, right? I had it on my headset, so it should pick up a lot better now. Yeah, I had it on the headset, so I was doing some work at night, and then I just didn't want to bother anybody, so I had it on the headset. Okay, 4 people. I think that's about as much as we are going to get today. I guess other guys could wander in. Uh, hey, yeah, let's see. Um, let's get a few things out of the way. So the Mattermost and GitHub. So basically, I started a new repo for the Haribo Cube. Started laying out the structure on GitHub to have like the same kind of thing like bomb instructions, licensing, and so on. In the next week or two, I'm gonna start putting up some of the kind of the design aspects and some documentation on some decisions made on the parts and stuff like that, and then can kind of give a background on the design philosophy and so on. Alpha testing starts end of the month, but before that, I'm gonna start ordering the parts from Aegis and Masumi, which has started already today. I talked to the Aegis rep, and we're getting some parts ordered. The controller, the smoothie board, and everything you can see in the camera here is I'm gonna go through those later. Some of the XY axes parts. Hey Patrick, some of the XY axes parts are printed, and I'll show those on the stream now after this. And what else? The If we have time, I'll take if we have time later, we'll take questions, and then we'll go AliExpress shopping for a bit, um, and then see where we go from there. So let's just kind of get right into reviewing the designs so far. So This is the, let me just maximize this screen here. This is the latest layout. It's huge. I know that's what she said. The right now the extrusion, like the whole one side of the square, is 500 millimeters. So if you factor in the fact that you have two 30-30 at the end, that's 560 edge to edge on all corners. It is big. I mean, it is like more than half a meter in square. But the thing is that we needed that for a few reasons. The rail. Let me see if I can highlight that. Yeah, there we go. That rail there, the linear rail, is 400 millimeter travel. So with that said, I needed about 45-50 millimeter for the motor mount. The smallest, like the new number 17 is 42 wide. So having a 50 millimeter mount is kind of the minimum you're going to be able to get out of that side. The idler side is 35 to 40, depending on, I haven't figured out the design yet, but right now it's 35. But that leaves about 15 millimeters of gap here. That's used for the belt tensioning. We'll get into that in a second. But basically what that effectively gives us, because the rod is also placed in the middle of the carriage, effectively it gives us a travel edge to edge of 368 at the minimum, and then if we start moving this idler in towards the edge, we'll probably get about 370. But let's say conservatively, advertise travel is 350. So that gives you 350 on the X, and then maybe, like, I haven't decided yet. I was thinking maybe 400 or 350, depending on how you guys feel about it. 350, 400 on the Z. So that minimum is going to give you 350 cube. It doesn't sound like a lot, but the MK42 bed is what, 250 by 210 and 220 high. So effectively, on two directions, we are 100 more, and in 150 more actually, some of them, and then 100 more in one of the other direction. That is huge in terms of increased volume of what you could print. I did the math, and if I increase the extrusion and the rail length to 500 on the rail and 600 on the extrusion, or maybe 560, let's say, just to give us some room for other things, we're going to be able to put in the entire Haribo 3030 inside the print surface, and effectively, if we wanted to, we could print the whole printer inside this printer. I thought that'd be a good way to troll people. It's like I printed this whole printer in another printer without buying any of the extrusion. So I might just do that just for kicks and giggles. For my own use, I'll build it to be 600, 600, 600 all around, and then I can print in two pieces. Basically, you do two pieces. One is the four lower extrusions for the base, and then the doorway would be a separate piece. You could probably fit that on a second bed, and then you would just bolt together the two pieces, and you have a 3030 frame that you printed on a Haribo Cube. So I thought that would be kind of cool. In terms of costs, I have not gotten the exact numbers yet, but if you go on to, let's bring just up here. You know what, let's not go. Let's talk about costs. Let's skip that for a second, and I'll switch back and forth. So, to give you an idea of the size, keep in mind, this is the STL I pulled off of Ultimaker GitHub, it is the exact spider used on the Ultimaker 2 Plus. So keep that in mind when I mention when I show you pictures of the Ultimaker 2 Plus later. This is the size of the spider compared to the print surface. You could tell how big this print surface is. Like if we look at this is let me see that. Let's see. Let me move that to a. That's one thing I didn't like about Fusion. The numbers are really hard to see. Okay, so roughly about there. So that's roughly from here to where the spider is roughly the print surface. Let's go a little further this way. That's about the size. That's roughly the print surface of the Ultimaker 2 Plus. So this, and this quadrant is bonus. You normally only get this much, but this, and this is going to be the extras built profile that we're going to have. It's still going to be smaller than the Gmax 1.5 XT on the actual footprint, because there's two problems. One is we kind of restricting ourselves to lose about 50 millimeter travel all around, because we were working on the restriction of having everything inside the enclosure, so that the enclosure walls don't need any interface. Like you don't need any holes or anything like that. It'd be fully enclosed. So all the hardware is inside. So we lose, like out of the 500, we lose about 100 for the side. So we really only have an internal work volume of 400 to work with. Plus, then we have to worry about things like the motor mount. So that's why it's down to 368 from 500, is because of that. But the reason why I might pump that up to 600 extrusion and 500 rail is because you still lose 50 on each side, but now percentage wise you're losing less, because you're scaling it up, and then that 50 onto over 600 millimeter is tiny. So that will effectively give us back, like if we went up to 100, that would give us 468 all around, almost like basically the volume would be almost 8 times as what the MK2 is going to do if you did it in all directions. So let's just go and get to the top. So this still uses the cross beam or cross rod gantry system. So this axis moves along these two characters, and this axis move along these two rails, and combine the two. You basically, by moving the motors at the same time, you effectively has a plotter action where you could put any quadrant, any coordinate in the space here. So the one advantage of this versus a full like let's say D-Bot or any of the other ones where they have a lot of motorized stuff you're moving around. The motors are stationary, and you're pulling it along the linear rail. The switch to linear rails actually was a conscious decision to eliminate a lot of the rods, because if you look at an Ultimaker, this axis would have been a rod that this carriage rides on, and it also acts as the axle to turn from the motor to turn the pulley to move this the correspondent carriage. So now the other problem is that when you go over such a long span, like we're doing 500 millimeter spans, you have certain sagging. So with linear rails, is fully supported on the extrusion, so there's no sagging. I mean, it's part of this extrusion. The carriage rides on this rail, so there's no chance of deflection on the linear rail itself. The chance of deflection is going to be on the cross rods here, but because there's 4 points of contact and then the fifth here to kind of tie the two together, you're only going to have sagging at the edges, meaning that if most of the time this spider is going to spend is the movement inside this center area, the only time you're going to get sagging is when you sort of have a extreme condition where you have the spider in one corner, so you have these two rods have chance of deflection here and here. But the time that you spend in that corner is very low if you start to just print your stuff kind of in the 80% area, right? So even then, that span is only about 400. So on a 10mm rod, 400-ish is still pretty good for deflection. I mean, I got a rod here that I'll show you guys later, but like the chance of that deflecting and bending over that is pretty low. So I'm not going to really worry too much about it. And it only starts to sag on its own weight. So I'm looking into using aluminum rods or carbon fiber rods for this. I know that I was talking about carbon fiber rods before. I need to get them made. I know a guy who can make them. He exactly 10 mil, so we don't have to sand them or anything like that. Well, so I am sort of artificially limiting myself by the virtue that like I'm trying to keep the outside walls clear of any sort of protrusions from the motor and stuff like that. At the same time, it's not a huge hindrance. The I guess the alternative is that we could put the motor on the outside, and you gain back some of the what would you gain back? You won't gain back any clearance. What you happen is that you would keep the motors on the outside of the enclosure so that if in case there's any sort of heat issues, it'll be on the outside. If I zoom in here, let's see if I can bring up the right now it's not really showing it because I haven't added it yet, but there's usually either 30-30 or 60-60 extrusion here, and the this is kind of the demarc line where the outside extrusion would be where you slide the wall for the enclosure. You could flip this, like you mirror this whole motor mount over so that the motor's on this side of the demarc point. That'll keep it on the outside, and still the pulley would be in the same spot, so that you don't have to really worry about too much about that. Yeah, you just basically play around with the with that motor mount, but the rails and everything stays the same. Because we're not even in alpha yet. We're entering alpha, so we might as well just kind of play around with it. For me, I don't really see an issue because like I have all this space to play with anyway. Because this idle on the other axis is constraining how far the other rod could go here, right? So I have this much space to play with. And sticking a motor here makes sense because then it's more compact. So we could play with that. I mean that's something that we could kind of deal with later. So since we're in this corner, I will show you the tensioning system. So these two are the two idler flange bearings. Um, the the um, the flange bearings are used to return the belt to the other side. And how we would tension that belt is, get a good angle here. There's an M4 bolt here that comes through this block and into the nut that's in the vertical member here. By tightening this bolt, you're pulling this whole thing closer and away from the belt, so that you tension the belt by moving this block along the extrusion. So you don't have you kind of have a built-in, ideally you kind of have a built-in tensioner, and you don't have to worry about tensioning in the belt, the end of the belt mount area. This is going to tension right here in the end, and I think I showed this in one of the previews. Is this bolt is actually accessible underneath this idler, underneath the belt. So and also the mounting for this is also accessible from the belt side. So if you would have to use a ball end here, and you use a straight one here. But what you would do to adjust the tension is you will loosen this one just slightly, enough to allow this block to move. Then you would use this M4 bolt to pull to add or remove tension on the belt. So that's how that tensioning system is going to work. You're never going to let me down on that 12 and 14, are you? So this is that two-piece belt mounting system. So basically what this is, let's start at the motor end first. Sorry. The end stop is going to be on top of this ramp, because then I could print this without using supports. The little protrusion here will hit this micro switch, and that's gonna be the end stop. So we're gonna have to play around with how much to protrude this to hit this particular switch, and which switch we're gonna use, and then the distance and stuff like that. But basically the idea is that this will hit the switch and stop it, and that's the end stop. We might put some kind of adjustability here by putting a screw or something, but I don't think we really need it. With the rails, worst case scenario, you're gonna basically ram the carriage into the motor block. That motor block is going to be pretty sturdy because it's held on by one nut on the vertical and one nut on the horizontal. So the chance of you knocking that out of the way is pretty low. The other thing is this particular bolt just clears this ramp. With the micro switch is not installed, you could install the motor first, then install the micro switch. So it's just enough room in there to sort of make that work. This printed piece here is the rod holder that's going to hold the cross rod. It's a two-piece design. So basically, what that means is this piece is going to be a printed piece that like I showed this end, it's going to hit the end stop. This side holds the rod. It's going to get bolted to the carriage by these 4 bolts. And once you do that, you have this belt holder that is separate from that rod holder. So you could install the carriage first, then install the belt holder after you pinch the belt in there. I have to kind of change the design of this belt holder a bit. I think I need a hole in the middle here so that you can pull the excess belt out of the middle, and I might want to make this a tiny bit bigger because it is tiny. I'll show you guys the printed part later. It is very tiny, and I think I was trying to keep this kind of neat. So I'm gonna make this slightly bigger so that I don't have to worry about like when I make the hole in the middle, I don't worry about strength because I'll have to cut a hole in the middle. What else was I going to talk about? Oh, so last time I mentioned it as well is because I'm using the Ultimaker Spider. The Ultimaker Spider normally uses LM8 UU size bushings for this cross rod, and that is just exactly perfect size. I don't like to zoom in there. That's exactly perfect size for the flange bushing that we're going to be using. So that allows me to use a 10 mil rod on a Ultimaker 2 spider. So I don't have to actually even draw the spider. Then you could use all sorts of cool stuff like the ocean block and all that other stuff on your you buy the Ultimaker 2 block, and then you're ready to go. That flange bushing is exactly the same as this flange bushing, so it's not a different part. So it uses that way. We only need 4 for this for the 4 rod holders, and then 4 for the spider. That's 8. It's very low parts count for that. I'm gonna test that. I'm receiving the spider and the bushings probably next few days. I think that they say they'll send it out the next few days. What else can I talk about here? Yeah, so basically, other than the stepper motor, the idler pulley and the bearings and this end stop switch, everything comes from IGUS except the Misumi extrusions. So yeah, like those are the two that I'm gonna work with. The extrusions, I had talked to T-Sun, so basically they will manufacture the exact specifications that we're gonna give them from the same one as Misumi. So the European and Asian guys don't really have to worry about that. You're gonna be able to get it from T-Sun directly. The rest of us can get it from Misumi. I think will ship everywhere, but what I'll do is if you can't source it yourself at a reasonable price, and if the shipping is not too outrageous, I will ship them. But shipping 500 millimeter length rails is probably very expensive. So I don't know if you kind of want to get into that. Guess show and tell. So that is the motor piece that we're talking about. The end stop switch here basically will clear this bolt, and the switch is a very tiny micro switch, and it goes sort of like right there. My fat thumb is going to get in the way, but that's what's going to look like basically. Normally, like you would see other designs where they would normally what they like you will see the end stop being a separate piece that you print, but in this case we sort of integrated that there so that it prints pretty nicely. You don't have to worry about having a separate piece that you need to mount. Everything is in close proximity where it needs to be. The only thing is that to get to this bottom bolt, you're gonna have to remove the idler and use a ball end. But once that's in, because this is stationary, you don't move this, so you could actually mount install the mount first and then install the motor later. So you don't that won't be in your way when you actually use it. Chris, the IGUS part number is TS-04-15. So I'll put that in the description. Like it'll be in the bomb. So I showed this on the 2 streams already, but this is the 12. So what the 12 means is the 12 millimeter rail width. This was a sample they sent me, and I'm going with 15 because the 15 sits better on the 3030 extrusion. So I'm going to go with 15. The cost is about the same. So the only difference, like I said, is that this rail is 15 and the carriage is 15 to match the rail. The holes, M3 holes. So we're gonna have to get some M3 T-nuts. Assuming he makes them, I gotta check with T-Sun whether they could get 3030 T-nuts that is M3. The idler uses M4, and all the mounts use M6. So unfortunately, there's 3 different size T-nuts. I will try to see if I can make this idler work with a M6, but it'd be overkill because the length coming out of there is going to be pretty long, and then using an M6 that long is going to be even harder to source, and it'd be more expensive than just going with a single T-nut. So maybe if you guys can't get it, I will sell those separately in a kit, both the M3 and the M4 T-nuts. Maybe if she can't get, like if Megan at T-Sun can't get them, I will sell them separately on the Tindy store. But the I think I showed you guys last time. There's a little bit of, you can hear a little bit of the bushing material rubbing against the rail, but it's gonna be pretty much dead silent. Like it's not gonna have that really annoying ball rolling sound when it moves, right? So so I showed this one, and we added hook approved alignment blocks on the hole itself. So when you actually put them in, they align and they give you a surface that it won't crack the hole there. So all of them are designed that way. The idler I just showed you guys. Basically, the 2 flange bearings is the belt idler. This I had to kind of fix the clearance a little on there, but that should be flat, sunken into the piece itself, so it should be flush. Then there's a nut trap on this side. It prints in this orientation, so all of these will work just fine. Again, the alignment block there. This is like totally overkill. I think the walls are like 8mm on either side. There's, okay, probably can't see it, but I'll show them all later. But there's a little dimples that, not dimples, protrusions, not dimples, that hold the bearings up away from the wall and centers them on the bolt. So that simple part took all night yesterday. So to think about how to make it printable and how to add the idler in and all that other jazz, the spacing of the height of the idler, everything was measured out. So it took all night to make that, even though it looks simple. This, so you can see that one there. I'll take the rod off because I don't want to be banging my monitor on it. But basically, that is how the belt's gonna get held on there with 2 bolts, and that way you could separate the belt from the carriage and not have any issue. But I'm gonna change this part so that there's a hole in the middle there, so that you can pull up the excess while you're tightening down the 2 ends. Because I didn't really think of that. When you install it, you're gonna have 2 loose ends. You kind of want to pull that up so that it's out of the way. So I'll add that, but the clearance on that is pretty good. Like it's gonna be clamping down. It's the teeth is on the part itself. Maybe I can take that off. Probably can't. I'll show you guys on the model later. So let's just finish up with SketchUp, so I could, not SketchUp, Fusion 360, so that we could kind of go from there. So this one. So again, this piece comes off without taking off this one. The change, oh yeah, gotta show you the rod then. The change here is the depth of that hole. So here has been, we made that 5mm so that is now a more snug fit in there. It was 3 and it was barely hanging on, so I made it 5. It's not really going to affect the travel too much because we actually never get to the end of this zone here because of that 50mm gap on the motor. We actually only get to like pretty close, but not close enough to hit that. So that was enough to add the material there to make this really strong and sturdy. So this one is a 400 millimeter long 10 mil rod. It's not deflecting, but it is quite heavy. So I'm talking to Aegis about using a, a hollow aluminum tube that they're gonna check with their engineer on that 500 span whether or not it's gonna have enough strength for the even if it's hollow to stand up to the movement. So they basically asked me for like I don't know what's the expected movement speed, the weight and everything else. So I had to get those later to them so that they could run the simulations on it. Oh, last thing on the belt holder. There's nut traps for, well, I'm not going to show it. There's nut traps on the bottom. I'll show that in a model. So nut traps on the bottom here. That's how that belt holder is being held in. Is basically you put the nuts in there, and then the carriage will hold them in place while you install the belt holder from the top. So this is the flat side you put on the printer, so then all of these features will print just fine. Like I said, this is now 5 mil, so that's the only other change on that part. This is that belt holder. So what I did was I'm gonna have to cut a hole. I'm gonna have to cut a hole here so I get fish the excess belt up there. I may make this a little bit longer because from looking at yeah, there you go, that's the one. Look at this. I mean I have another 5 mil on this side and probably another 3 mil on this side. So I probably could make this slightly longer to compensate for the fact that I'm gonna have a hole in the middle. Because I want to at least have 4 or 5 teeth of engagement before it comes up the hole, so that it holds it tightly. So if I cut the hole in here, I really only have 4 and 4 on this side. I kind of want to make that 5, maybe 6 and 6 on either side, so that gives better belt engagement. And then yeah, I was thinking of that, but yeah, he's gonna bring that up on the next stream, right? So um, I guess because it just looks neat when it's slightly smaller than what you need. So I'll see what I could do. I mean, that was a fairly quick part. I mean, that was like 2 center rectangles, and then I used the belt profile to cut into that body, and that was like 20 minutes. So I'm gonna have to like that was just kind of proof of concept to make sure that that belt holder is gonna work, and it does. So I just had to adjust the size and the mounting on it, right? So that will need some work tonight, but could get that out of the way. I'm not gonna show them, but finally got all the Aegis samples that I wanted. Same with this and all the other jazz. Just kind of jealous that I was buying all these Aegis stuff and they never sent me samples. So I tell the guy to come out and met me, and he gave me a whole bunch of samples. Not anything useful, but you know, the only thing is this one was this is the one I wanted, right? Remember, this is the one where it just sort of slides up and down. Nothing useful. I wanted one just so that I have one. So yeah. Okay, so let's go and talk about these controllers and see. Let me get something else. I gotta get a new chair. This is a very squeaky chair. So this is a ramps board with Arduino that you normally get with with any of the generic printers. Yeah, it's gonna use four steppers because if you use four steppers, then I don't have to link the two by rod and belt and all the other jazz. Um, the the two pairs of steppers is gonna get wired together. So, um, oh yeah, I'll flip that in a second. Um, two for the X and two for the Y, and then they'll be wired in series so that they will run in the same steps. And then the what was the other thing I was gonna say? They'll run in the same steps, and then they'll run through the same driver, so you don't need a separate driver for it. So it'll work. I had checked with Leslie, and he's the electronic guy, and he said it works just fine. So that way is you don't have to worry about using a rod and belt to synchronize the two sides, because if you think about it, you have the stepper on one side, and then you have a rod that goes all across and turns another pulley. Those two pulleys, and then turning more pulleys on the end, that's a lot of drivetrain loss. So, series of parallel, we're gonna have to test that. But from what Leslie said, it really doesn't really matter. He likes series, and then I was like, okay, fine, we'll go with series. Let me just see if I can flip the display here. That's better, right? Okay. So this is your everyday rip wrap discount. I got this like probably 6 years ago, but never used it. So this is the standard RAMs, and it's 8-bit. It's got all the removable drivers and everything on it. This is probably one of the better quality ones I've seen. Some of the other ones are really crap. And it's a real Arduino made in Italy, so I was going to use that on one of the printers and never really got around to it. Compared to ASIC X5 Mini, is about the same footprint, but everything you need is on here. That was just the comparison, but it uses the standard. Maybe this way is better. Uses standard stepper driver interfaces. You have all the end stops down here, and this is all the stepper outputs, power and everything. The hot end output, everything's here. The reset and play button on here. I think. Let me see what else was that. Oh, Ethernet. So this is one of the boards I was telling you about that had Ethernet on board. So the you don't have to buy a separate interface for it, but the problem is that it only has 4 steppers. So XYZ E1. So but I didn't like to connect this for the power in bed extruder. Yeah, that's easy enough to remove. I might get Leslie to do it. I mean, he's very good at it. He has a desoldering line, so I might do that. Depends. I mean, these are still technically these are still Phoenix connectors. The Phoenix is the company, right? So these are still Phoenix connectors, but yeah, if you wanted a removable plug like this, like the Rams, right? Then you sort of have to desolder that one and put in another one, but no big deal. One thing is that he used to, and I think you could still do it, is you could ask him not to install that when he puts the boards together. Because I'm pretty sure, from what I remember last time, is when I ordered the stuff from him, you could actually get it custom, not to have that on there, and then you could just kind of do whatever you want with it. I'm not sure, Pat, is that the micro SD slot? So I think that's what that is. And so overall, like 32-bit board, I think is $109. So that's not a bad price for that. So, and it's nice and compact. got components on both sides, so it looks pretty good. I haven't Patrick's been playing around with it, so I'll let him talk about it later about whether or not it's any good. The other one that we have here, I bought a X5 GT. Oh, the quality of the board is very good. All the solder points are very good. Not many like out of place things on the Mini. Okay, so this is on the Mini. So I got some concerns about this one, but I'll go into that. Well, the Mini is not too bad. This is the Mini version 3. So the difference between version 2 and version 3 is the onboard Ethernet and the removable driver. Some of the stores, if you don't buy it directly from them, some of the other stores that carry it, they still have the one with the integrated steppers, so it will look like a Rambo with the integrated steppers, no sockets. So you may want to make sure you get a version 3 board, not a version 2. The version 2 ones would probably be cheaper, but then I would just go with version 3. It would use the same smoothie but just make sure you get the right one. GT, X5 GT. So compare to the Rams, it is quite a bit bigger, but it's not as thick. But it is, the footprint is just basically eclipses the entire build, right? So the matte black board, it looks very good. The only thing is, you guys probably see already, is some of these sockets and these guys up here, if I hold it straight, it's a little crooked. I guess I'm just a little bit picky. Like, these will work just fine, and then your drivers will plug in just fine, but they were a little crooked. So yeah, like if I did that and see if you actually see, like, this one. Look at this one is crooked compared to the other ones. So that's my only gripe about it. But the thing is that this has five steppers, 2 hot end outputs. So if you're gonna follow along and do the dual extrusion, this is the one you need. I know that's what I said. Compared to the Mini was exactly like, you could tell, like, they're all flat and straight. Everything was cool in the Mini, but I think the GT was slightly older, and I think it was a different supplier. So I think that's why it looked different too. Like the components and stuff like that. I think it's an older design though, and then that one, the power in is beefy on it though, so it should be pretty good. Is the there's a separate input. So what the major difference between this one and the Mini is that this has 5 steppers, like I said. It also allows you to use what he calls Bigfoot steppers. So you could use yeah. So you use Bigfoot steppers if you were going to a CNC machine. Like if you want to reuse this later for your mostly printed CNC, you could do that. The other thing is it doesn't have Ethernet, and it's a mini SD card, not a micro, so it's kind of weird. Like it's kind of like the bastard child in between. That's why I think this was like never really updated. Like here, you could tell. Look at these. Look at these two connected. This one and this one. See, they're crooked, right? So it just felt cheap. Like I think they could have done a better job on those. I mean, alignment wise. Like even the power connector, right? You could tell like is crooked. So little things like that kind of like for the price. I mean, there was like 180, right? So I'm kind of debating whether I want to bitch at the guy and send it back to him or not. But it'll function fine. Just cosmetically, I just don't know if I really want to keep that. Yeah, it feels like the NKSS space. What's the other thing I was about? Oh, and this one has 2 expansions. So if you don't, 5 steppers is not enough. You can actually have an expander board that will give you 2 more, so that's 7. So if you wanted to use this for the Kraken, the 4 extruder, you could use that to do the Kraken on here as well. So 4 extruder. If this is kind of like optional, like the advanced dual extrusion path is going to use this one. You could sort of, I think there's a way you could actually get more extra steppers on a mini as well, but not worth it. I think is by the time you look at this one, is get all the extra beefy stuff is going to be worth the money if you're going to go with dual extrusion. Let's go with this one. It is a lot bigger though. I mean, compared to the mini, like it's basically double the size, right? So still has the reset and the play buttons there. Like I said, no Ethernet, so you're gonna have to use the other expansion for Ethernet or Wi-Fi. So those two, done through those two, and the panel. So this is very nice. I was surprised at how nice this is. The Viki 2.0. So basically, this is the only concern I had was the ribbon cable here is sort of like, I would have probably stick it down with tape like that so that it doesn't catch anything, but it extends the micro SD up to the front. The panel, the knob feels very nice. It has a very good tactile feel to it, and then that white ring around it is LED backlit, red and blue. So red, when it's heating up, it's going to be red. When it's cooling down, it's going to be blue. So it gives you a visual indicator of what the print is doing. This full graphics display, not the 4x character display. It is kind of basic, but I like it because I could probably just make a mount for it and have it mounted there. I think you could play around with the output on what you show on the screen, but I got 2 of these instead of a Viki Mini. I wasn't sure if I wanted a mini one. The only reason why I didn't like the mini one was it doesn't light up, so that was kind of what sold me on it. It was about the same price range, so that has a really good click feel to it. So I mean, I'm happy with it. And, it is pricey though. It's like 80, I think it's 79. If you buy it separately, it's 79. If you buy it with the board, the controller as an add-on, it's only 69. So probably worth if you're gonna think about getting one of these, probably worth getting it with the get this with the board. Don't get it after because you pay $10 and you have to pay shipping. That's the thing too, is me and Pat is in Canada, so we pay through the nose for customs on those. I would assume that they're not made in the U.S. I mean, the guys in the U.S., but I'm assuming they're made in China, and then we got dinged. Like on this order, I got the GT, the Mini, the 2 LCD, the 2 cables. I was dinged like 80 Canadian in customs charges. So yeah, I was like, wasn't very happy about that. But it's not their fault, right? I mean, it's customs fault, right? So I'm not gonna really bitch too much about it. But if I were to get it again, I would probably like $80 would $80 is basically this, right? Like I got this thing for customs. So I think out of $80, a third of that was customs. The other, no, so 2/3 of that was custom, and a third of that was actual sales tax we had to pay here anyway. So it is what it is. If you get, I think we found 2 clones, the MKS S base, and then there's a Aztec clone on AliExpress. They're slightly less. I guess we could go surf there now, but let me see if there's anything else I want to show on stream before I switch over. Yeah, you see that? spinner. Whole box full of spinner. It's spinner for days. Um, so these are my design. I got to still clean them up a bit. There's a bit of stringing on it, but I've been trying to make some money on the spinners. So I gotta pay for some of these parts, right? But let me just see that. These are the ones I give to. I wish I could focus a bit better on it. There you go. Full ceramic. Um, ceramic balls. I removed the shields on both sides, so there's no shield on them, and they do make a bit of noise, but they are spinning like crazy. So got these APEC 9s. I think these were 20. I would say 18 to 20 bucks for 8, so they're not cheap, but they spin forever. And these are the ones I use. These are the ones I use for friends and family. So when I sell them, I use some cheapo local motion stuff. So see what else is there to show off today. I think that's it. Let me switch back to the other view. We go shopping. There you go. So while I'm sort of getting set up, I would take any question, discussion, answers, whatever you guys want to do. I remember there was a question sent to me via Matamos was talking about deflection on the rods, and so yeah, so the problem is that it's a losing battle, right? You make the rod thicker or more the diameter bigger so that it gets strength, but when it gets strength it gets heavier, so you need a larger diameter to make it so that it doesn't sag. So I'm sort of giving up on 500 millimeter steel rods because it is pretty heavy. Gonna go with for the cross rod, it's gonna go with aluminum. It just matter which aluminum and whether it's hollow or not. So I would use the 10 mil that I got as the vertical for the Z. Originally I was going to use 12, but I think 12 is overkill. I think 10 I could get away with, so I'm going to use 10s for like a pair of 10s for the vertical Z. So see if I could. You know what? I'm going to do this on the other window because. Okay. Why are you not letting me go? Oh, yeah, because I got this one maximized. So let's do that. There we go. I'm gonna log in on the other window so that you fools don't know my password. There we go. Bring it back down. Yeah, I know. I forgot to open GearBest. Make sure you click the affiliate link, right? Let's see. Oh yeah, so I'm getting these in the mail. 5 pancake. They call them pancake steppers. So they are 30 millimeter tall, because we're using a pair of them, we don't need a lot of torque, so the pair will work together to move the whole X or the whole Y to gantry. So we could probably divide up the work on two, so we're able to get away with using smaller ones for the space constraint. At $35.71 for 5 pieces shipped, I really can't complain. So I got these. I know there's 5, so probably gonna use like I think I got 2 of these coming. So that's 10 motors. That's more than enough for 2 builds. So I'm gonna go with these. I'll put, like I said, I'll put these on the bomb so that we'll tentatively say these are the ones we're gonna go with for $35. So that one is a good deal, and it's removable connector, and it comes pre-crimped with a DuPont connector for 1 meter. 1 meter should be more than enough to run back to the controller. The other thing was I'm looking at this Cyclops idea. Basically, is 2 in 1 out. Uses the heat break from the E3D, but it's a very compact unit. So debating between this and the real E3D Cyclops. This is not a clone of the Cyclops. This is the same idea, but the problem with the Cyclops, I'll probably touch on that on the next stream when I can bring up the. No, maybe I'll do it now. E3D Cyclops. So the Cyclops is also a 2-in-1, right? So basically, it's also a 2-in-1 output hot end, right? But the problem is this here. So these 2 heat breaks into this mixing block, and this mixing block forces it out onto the nozzle. So there's 2 problems, right? One is this is the old style heat block with the heat breaks, and the mixing zone is a very obtuse. Is it obtuse? No, right? Maybe like a acute. Sorry, not obtuse. A very acute angle to get into the mixing mode. So whereas this one, they enter through the top, and the mixing zone is a gradual travel into the mixing zone before it enters the heat block. So, and the fact that this uses E3D compatible heat blocks and heat breaks and stuff like that, I just feel that this might work a little bit better. So we'll do some testing on that, see whether or not that's a valid assumption. But again, at $32, you really can't go wrong with you trying one of these things. The mounting is from the back is pretty good. It comes with a fan and the 40-watt heater for $32 shipped. So we go try it with that for the dual extruding. So what else did I buy these days? I think I showed this one off last time. So 2 pulleys, and I think is 2 meters of belt, if I remember correctly. Sometimes they don't put it in the description, but 6mm, 4x3, 1 key, 2 meters. So 2 meters of belt, 2 pulleys, shipped to your house for $263 US. I mean, it's practically free. So I'll put that link up there later. You guys can buy some of that. Because stock up on that, because that's a good deal. The bearings I use, I know you guys can get it off AliExpress, but I ended up, let's just go back 1 page. I think is 1 page back. Oh yeah, let's just show this one too. So I got this, the Ultimaker Spider, $15. So it comes with the bolt-in connectors, and it's the molded one with it comes with 2 LMA UUs that I'm not going to use, the long ones. So you can actually reuse those long ones for your other printer. So for $15, again, you really can't go wrong for $15. So you don't have to print them. Then you can just basically just use the injection molded ones. $15 a set. I got that just for some testing, see if it works out. Yeah, I went all in. 500 608 bearing, $209. EMS was like another 40. So about 250, 50 cents a bearing. The only reason why I went with these guys is because I got 500 bearings for 250, and they come with the shields off. Because taking the shields off was taking a lot of time for me, so I just said fuck it, just gonna go in and get it without the shields. They are steel balls, they're not ceramic balls, but I know you could get it cheaper, but for this price, I just figured just go get it. 500, I could sell those and be happy with it. It is free shipping to Canada, but I ended up with I think it was EEMS. This one, 14 to 25 days. So I guess EEMS is the economy EMS, so it's like 2 weeks versus like a month and a half, because I want to make sure I get the bearings before the whole fat is gone, right? So I probably can't spell it, but yeah, this is the knockoff version. So let's just go have a look at the knockoff version. So this is the knockoff version of the Aztec X5 Mini, except it's kind of weird. Okay, so there's two things. One is it has an extra extruder output. Yeah, well, free shipping, right? Free shipping. So I'll get into that in a second. I'll explain why there's free shipping in a second. So basically, this one is sort of the combination of a GT and a Mini. It's a mini footprint with 2 extruder and 2 heat beds. The uses the standard kind of the cheapo LCD interface with the 2 cables that we normally use. The headers and the screw blocks are questionable, so I'm not sure if I really trust it too much. And it's $43, so it's a good toss up between the Mini and the GT. And again, no Ethernet, so I think you could get you could somehow, there was a hack I saw, there was a hack to get the Ethernet off of the board, but it's very like MacGyverish to get wires jumping off of there into a Ethernet module. And I know I make a big deal out of Ethernet, but the interface is not really there yet. The SmoothieWare Ethernet page kind of sucks, but there's aftermarket you can install on the board that will give you better pages and control on the printer. So that's something you can look into. I just like it because it gives me option, and I don't want to have to run another thing. Like that's why I haven't been on an Octopi and stuff like that. So I didn't want to have to deal with that. Yeah, so I was told that like not everybody gets free shipping. So I'm sorry. Sometimes I may make it sound like everybody gets free shipping. So um, the I don't know. I'm not sure if you guys know how the whole shipping situation works, but basically, um, each country they negotiate a reciprocal contract with each other to deliver each other's mail. So I guess because the North American market is pretty big, and there's a lot of they negotiate at a better rate, and then also the Chinese government will subsidize these guys. So basically, they almost ship for free. Like they don't even get charged shipping on their end if they ship to Canada, U.S., and a bunch of other places. So basically, they just drop it off at the post office. It gets mailed out, so they don't. It's not part of the cost of their business. Sometimes in North America, you see we get packages from AliExpress that's coming from like Switzerland or Norway or something, or Germany sometimes, because what they do is they bulk ship it to Europe, and then they ship it from Europe over here, so that they take advantage. Like they basically repackage and relabel them and ship it out from Germany. So um, they buy they purchase blocks of like the contract to send stuff out to North America. So North America is kind of a big market for them. So they do that, just go through European countries. Sometimes you see them go through Australia as well. So it's kind of weird, like the way they got it all set up there. The You could get a G-Tech version of this, and I think see you, Patrick. So I think John could probably tell you a bit more about this company. It is a cheap ass company. This is that's like um, X3. This is not even X5. This is an X3. So basically, if you want a RAM's compatible board, this is it. So um, I think somebody was asking to compare the size of the Rambo. I missed that part. Let's see if I could get this over here. So that's the Rambo. So roughly about the same size. It's about if I had to guess, it's about a third smaller than the Rambo. Um, in terms of overall footprint, it's about a third smaller. So um, yeah, the X3 is basically X3 is the 8-bit, so you don't want X3, so you're gonna want X5. So you're gonna search for it, probably search for X5 and see if I can find anything else. I think this is the only guy that sells it. This is the old version of the board. He sells a newer version now. So yeah, this is the older version. So yeah, that was one thing I forgot to mention that on the GT. If I remember correctly, you could actually run dual voltage on the GT. Don't quote me on it, but I think that's why there's two inputs, one for the heat bed input and one for the I think the 12 volts. So you can run the heat bed instead of 24 and everything else at 12, and I think there's a jumper for that. So you could actually set the VREF, so depending on which input. So your steppers and your HAL and everything could run at 24 volts, and you could run your logic in 12 volts. So the GT has that option, whereas the Mini doesn't. But I think for most of us, the GT Mini is going to be the one that we'll be using. So there was one printer I wanted to show you guys. Wasn't a Tio, it was yeah, I think it was this one. So Michael make SLA printer, $400. I thought this was a pretty good deal. I saw one review for it. It was pretty good. I think it's just worth looking at later. Is what like the Michael make printer. It's full aluminum body, so it's actually pretty decent size too for what it is. See, like it's full CNC metal casing, um, and this SLA for $400. I mean, you really can't go wrong with this if it works fine. It's just a matter of what the resin cost is gonna be. So I know that like everybody's like been bugging me about my Form 1, but I think this is a good deal for what you get. They have a few models. I think this is the one with the shield, so it's for $600. So whether or not you get it with you only need it with the enclosure, so you kind of have a look at that when you guys get a chance to. Um, yeah, I'm not going to go to Gear Best, so don't ask. Yeah, I think that's it. I haven't really gotten much of anything else these days. Um, see if I have anything else of interest. Give me a second. Oh yeah, so these are the ones. So APEC 9, those are the ones I was showing you with the ceramic balls. These are white ceramic balls, but they come with, it's a mixture. You either get a black or white ceramic balls. Um, this is a lot of 8. So 8 pieces for $16. So about $2 a bearing. So it is quite more expensive um, than the cheaper ones I'm getting with the 50-cent ones. But these are full ceramic balls, and they roll pretty nice. But like I said, I only use it for friends at $2, so I'm not gonna go with not gonna go with these for like the ones that sell. The other ones are good enough. We are just past probably 15 minutes, so I'll take any questions and stuff like that now before I let everybody go. I think I want to kind of show this thing. Let's see so before I go. So I think I mentioned this. So the bearings ride on top of this protrusion, and the nice thing about it is that with the fillet, it actually printed this without support, which is pretty cool. Like it actually printed this whole thing out of the side wall without support. So that's something you could use for fillets, I guess, is to make sure that things like that print out fine, because that came out pretty good. Like the part itself, there was like absolutely no issue with the. I'm not gonna get focused, but it's not. It got absolutely no problems with that. And you can see from this angle that that idler screw is going to be pretty accessible. Same with the mounting. So this part, I'm really happy with this part. And I've been showing this off a bit, but I'm really happy with this part. I think that's it. Like I might try to do this again next Wednesday because I think earlier everybody's kind of still around and it gives me rest of the night to do something else instead of having to pause and do a podcast or a vlog and then go back to what I was working on. So get home, get this out of the way, and then kind of move on from there. So I'll try this again on Wednesday. Saturday, I'll try for 11:30. No promises, but Saturday I think I'll do 11:30 and then get it out of the way again so I can keep working. You can tell these parts are coming out pretty good. So hopefully get everything ordered this week. They come next week, and I guess start to do some assembly work on the print itself, and then yeah, we go. So yes, the top of the printer, I'm gonna have to add another 150 or so of dead space because the bolt-in is gonna need space to move, and then they enclose on top. So my expectation is gonna be about 600 millimeter tall. So it is quite a bit taller than most printers, but it be fully enclosed. The only one is the front door is going to be an issue. So what I was thinking is that if I could make a lift door, so basically um, you lift out the one panel to get into the printer, and then you slide it back down again like a trap door to kind of close out the front. Either that or have some other way of closing up the front, maybe magnetic door. I think that works too. I haven't really thought about it, but that's the problem, right? Is that I don't need an enclosure myself. I'm just designing it with enclosure in mind. So I'm gonna need some help. And maybe one of the alpha guys would want to kind of take up that work on making the enclosure work. But for me right now is the plan is that to get the XY parts all sorted out, get the XY Masumi I guess parts ordered, start the assembly, then work on the Z mount, the bed mount, and the actual bed itself. I know I think in the first few streams we talked about it's going to be aluminum Mex plate. Um, there's some talk about using a 300 mil PCB, but now that we are at 368, is going to be a little tough, right? So we'll talk about that later. I got somebody at the door, so I'll catch up with you guys in the chat later. All right, see you.